Killer Klowns from Outer Space is the newest asymmetric horror game developed by IllFonic, the studio behind Friday the 13th the game, Predator Hunting Grounds, and most recently, Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. I actually never got around to playing this game until a month or two ago, and I have a whole video on this page dedicated to me playing this for the first time. You should go check that out. But I absolutely love asymmetric horror games. Dead by Daylight is probably the multiplayer game that I have the most time spent in. And every single time a new asymmetrical horror game comes out, like Evil Dead the game or Texas Chainsaw Massacre the game, it's like a holiday to me. I just love these games so much. But anyway, that kind of makes today like a holiday because Killer Klowns from Outer Space came out today in its 1 week early access period, and I've been playing it. I've been playing it a lot, and I have a lot of thoughts I want to share with you guys. So I'm going to jump into the review. I'm going to show you guys some raw gameplay, but before I do that, hit that subscribe button. I talk about video games all the time on this page. Day one reviews just like this, but other video game discussions as well. But I also talk about movies and TV shows. But enough with this intro. Let's talk about Killer Klowns. So first off, I want to make it clear from the get-go that this is a first impressions review. I do have some time put into the game already, like I mentioned, enough to share with you guys my initial thoughts, but I still have to and want to play it for a lot more hours, and depending on how this video performs, I plan to release an updated review sometime around June 4th when the game officially launches, after I put in a significant amount of more time into the game and my thoughts are more refined. But again, this is just my first impression thoughts. But anyway, let's start off with the things that I'm liking about Killer Klowns so far. The first being the gameplay. The main objectives in this game for both killers and survivors is the same as pretty much every other asymmetrical horror game. As a killer, you're trying to kill all of the survivors before they escape and slow down their progression in the meantime. And as a survivor, you're trying to escape the map before you're brutally murdered, or even worse, turned into a cotton candy cocoon. And Killer Klowns is another version of this tried and true formula, but it's what it does differently that truly makes it stand out, more so than most other newer games in this genre that I have played. For example, one of the coolest things in this game is that survivors can actually fight back, and not in a wimpy, weak way, like maybe they can hit you with a brick and make you stop walking for 5 seconds, or maybe they can shine a flashlight in your eyes and make you stop walking for 6 seconds, but they can actually fight back. Survivors can wield baseball bats or axes or even shotguns and pistols, and they can deal a ton of damage. They can even kill the clowns. And I'm not saying I want every asymmetric game to do this because I don't, but that small yet significant difference is enough to make this game feel noticeably different than pretty much all of its other peers. Sometimes rounds even turn into just straight PvP bloodbath brawls. The clowns will corner survivors and just take turns bludgeoning them with their goofy ass mallets. Or like I said, I've even seen a group of survivors form an angry mob and attack a poor innocent clown and kill them like their life meant nothing. More often than not, this game can genuinely feel like a combat-centric PvP experience. And that makes me think that this game has the potential to reach an audience that other asymmetrical games have failed to reach. Now, don't get me wrong though, I know other games in this genre have combat on both sides. I've played Predator Hunting Grounds. Hell, even Friday the 13th in a way had some combat on both sides, but this might be the first time that I've experienced where it actually feels good and like it was intended to be that way and not just tacked on. I also love how arcadey this game can feel at times. I enjoyed Evil Dead the game and I enjoyed Texas Chainsaw Massacre the game, but after a while they just stopped feeling fun to play, if you know what I mean. That's actually one of the reasons why I loved Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed so much, was because of how simplified, arcadey, and just fun the core gameplay was. And with Killer Klowns, it kind of feels like IllFonic wanted to go with a more accessible, arcadey feeling game as well. But at the same time, it also feels a lot like their Friday the 13th the game, and other more traditional games in the genre, as contradictory as that sounds. But so far, from what I've experienced, it really feels and seems like they wanted this experience to be 50% traditional, like Friday the 13th, and 50% accessible arcadiness, like Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. And the result seems to be working really, really well so far. Now I'm going to rapid fire some other things I'm really impressed with so far, but again, if I make a follow-up review, I'll go into all of these points in more detail. But it actually has a decent amount of maps on launch, which I really, really appreciate. A lot of smaller multiplayer games like this have absolutely no shame launching with just one map, as if that's something to be considered normal these days. But Killer Klowns has a few distinctly different maps, and that's awesome. It also has a surprising amount of customization options for your characters, and that's badass as well. Rounds don't feel too short, but they don't feel too long either. They seem just right, and I know that sounds like it could be trivial, but that can genuinely affect the enjoyment of a game like this, at least in my opinion. But now let's talk about the things I'm not liking so far about Killer Klowns. This game is having far from a perfect launch. First off, it took me probably 45 minutes after the game launched to get into a match, but once I turned off crossplay, it seemed to find games a lot faster. And I know when it comes to games that launch these days, sometimes you go a day, 2 days, sometimes even a week before matchmaking works, so 45 minutes is not the end of the world. It's actually pretty good in today's standards, as sad as that sounds. The gameplay is fun and enjoyable, but on a technical level, I'm experiencing a lot of bugs, stuttering, lagging, characters getting stuck, hit detection just straight up not working. I've had the game crash on me once, but another time it just froze, and I was forced to exit the app and re-wait in the queue. But a more fundamental critique I have with the game so far is that I think there needs to be a big nerf on how easy it can be to escape sometimes, especially when you're playing with a party as survivors. The game starts with 7 survivors, and in most of the games that I've played, within the first 1 to 2 minutes, a group of 3 players had already escaped. And obviously, I don't know how to fix that, but I don't think you should be able to escape that easy and that early on, especially when it takes twice as long for one clown to just walk across the map. But anyway, that's my quick and brief thoughts after playing Killer Klowns from Outer Space, the game, today at launch. Like I said, I'll be most likely making a follow-up review once I play the game a lot more, so look forward to that. But more importantly, have you played this game yet, or do you plan to play this game yet? If you have, let me know what you're thinking about it in the comments, and if you haven't, let me know why you haven't played it yet. Do you plan to play it, or are you skipping it completely? And if you are skipping it completely, let me know why. But anyway, thank you for watching, especially if you watched this far.